What does the word atheism actually mean? Misunderstandings over the definition are so commonplace that this seems like a very natural place to begin. I suppose the standard view is that atheism is the belief that there is no God, or in other words, the denial of the proposition God exists. And of course by God we mean all gods. Although many atheists do identify with this definition, indeed some would say it hits the nail on the head, it does not capture the whole meaning of the word. The online Oxford English Dictionary includes the term disbelief in the existence of God, alongside but not in conjunction with denial of. To disbelieve a proposition is to have an absence of belief as regards to its truth or falsity, which is clearly different from believing that the proposition is false. This is how I would characterise my atheism. Aren't you just agnostic then? You might object. It is often supposed that belief in God is a spectrum, with atheism and theism at opposing ends, and agnosticism in the middle. The agnostic is thereby free from the closed-minded dogma demonstrated at both poles in equal measure. Agnosticism, however, is not disbelief about the existence of God, rather it is a belief about what can be known. If an atheist finds the notion of God unintelligible, then as far as his views about God are concerned, he is agnostic. Atheists who hold that God is a scientific hypothesis that will probably be disproven are committed to a much weaker form of agnosticism. So contrary to some atheists, I do not think that agnostics are fence-sitting, self-deceiving cowards. Rather, if pulled away from dogma and confusion, most people would admit to some form of agnosticism. Now we can dispel the myth that all atheists are as dogmatic as theists. Concerning a worldview, dogma equates to certain principles that are considered infallible, in the restricted sense that they should not be questioned. Dogmatic atheists accuse other atheists of not being genuine if they don't actively believe that God doesn't exist. They arrogantly state that science has disproven God, and so conclude that anyone who doesn't share their view is an uninformed idiot. It's ironic that this form of dogmatism invokes the scientific method, when to actually employ the scientific method is to be necessarily undogmatic. Science begins with disbelief concerning a proposition, and proceeds till we can no longer consistently maintain said disbelief. If evidence pops up, either during an experiment or in the light of a prior or future inquiry, which credibly disaffirms the proposition, then and only then can we declare it false. But dogmatic atheists tend to believe that God doesn't exist because there is insufficient evidence to say that he does. Fortunately, this dogmatism is often eliminable by a correct understanding of the scientific method, and adequate knowledge of what science actually says, and indeed refrains from saying, about the origins of the universe. But theists who change their beliefs about God in view of these facts are very rare. It seems that while they are committed to dogma, atheists don't have to be. It is commonly supposed that atheism provides no basis for morality. The claim is not that atheists feel more inclined than theists to go on a killing spree. It is rather that they have no reason to declare that doing so would be morally wrong. Some external source, in this case a divine lawgiver, is required to kickstart the moral instinct into action. But why, the atheist objects, should the feelings of others and our embedded notions of what is right and wrong become any less significant if this being does not exist? To quote Sam Harris, we decide what is good in our good books by recourse to moral intuitions that are hardwired in us and have been refined by thousands of years of thinking about the causes and possibilities of human happiness. End quote. I'm sure most theists would agree with this to some extent. Obeying laws in order to get into heaven or to stay out of hell does not in itself constitute morality. Theists act morally because God's laws are moral, and his laws are moral because God is good. But the proposition God is good must be accepted in virtue of faith, unless a theist concedes that humans have some ingrained notion of what is good. Inextricably, it is this ingrained notion that provides reason for acting morally. But how can atheistic evolutionary theory account for our moral intuition? After all, doesn't it teach that all organisms are inherently selfish, out to preserve their own genes at the expense of everyone else? The theory teaches that something is selfish, but it certainly isn't the organism. As Richard Dawkins puts it, the unit of natural selection is not the selfish organism, but the selfish gene. It is the gene that, in the form of information, either survives for many generations or does not. End quote. Selfishness in the organism can help preserve its genes, but the theory certainly doesn't demand it. The suggestion is a gene that programs individual organisms to favour their genetic kin is statistically likely to benefit copies of itself. Another device, known in the literature as reciprocal altruism, is displayed in all corners of the animal kingdom in the form of complex symbiotic relationships. Again, it is unsurprising that the genes responsible for such behaviour will propagate over time. Of course, further structures are required to account for the complex altruism exhibited by human beings, but one cannot deny that Darwinian foundations can be adequately put in place. Thanks for listening.